Ooh ah, ooh ah, ooh ah, ooh ah, ooh ah, ooh ah. Why do fools fall in love? I don't know if that song is in this movie. Probably. Most movies, most songs from the '50s seem to make it their way into this movie. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review a motion picture from, I think, is it 1972? 1972, very well, could be early 70s at any rate. The second movie George Lucas would write. Did he write this entirely? I don't know. If he didn't write the whole thing, he co-wrote it and he directed it. Produced by Francis Ford Coppola, however the hell you say his last name. Coming at you to review American Graffiti. Now this movie is a movie that, I guess, I don't know if I can really say I grew up with because I didn't watch it that much, but I was aware of when I was a very young kid, my dad being of the era of, that he was, kind of growing up in this same era. He was very much a part of this actual, he actually lived this era and loved the old cars. He was an old car enthusiast and stuff like that, so an old hot rod enthusiast. So this movie was was right up his alley, taking place in the era it did, in particular revolving heavily around old cars and the music of the time. So that was how I was exposed to it at an early age, and it probably, like so many movies in the 80s, mid to late 80s, that I quote unquote owned, I taped off of TV with a VCR. Obviously, it wasn't HDR or not HDR, but whatever. I've never had one, but whatever those devices were or are that you can record, things off TV or whatever. But I'm pretty sure that I just, I probably, if the first version I probably saw of this movie was taped off TV, but not being, it's PG anyway, and not being, full of any kind of lots of explicitives or anything like that. You're not going to miss a lot anyway. But obviously, it's probably well known if you haven't seen it and you don't know it. This movie basically takes place in 1962, and it's basically the events that take place during I don't know, like a 12-hour period or something like that, or less. How long is night during the summer? I don't know. So it goes from basically dusk till dawn, this movie does, and it shows the exploits of a group of friends throughout the course of a night in presumably the summer of 1962. And it starts with this, Ron Howard's in the movie, of course, and it starts with this rendezvous kind of at this drive-in, this food drive-in place and stuff. And I mean, right off the bat, I gotta say that, obviously the best thing about this movie is the wonderful portrayal of the time, the era, and the cars, and the music and stuff. And what's really ironic about this movie, it was only made 10 years after the era. I mean, it's like making a movie now about, remember those good old days back in 2010. Like, it's kind of goofy to think that this movie was only made 10 years after the era it takes place in, but already it's only 10 years later, it's so romanticized, the era, as if it's like 50 years prior. It's really, really weird. And basically what happened with me, and the reason I'm reviewing this movie this year, is I came across this movie on Amazon on Blu-ray, and it was like ridiculous. I mean, it was like, I don't know if it was $6 or $7 or $8 or something like that. And I'm like, my dad had the VHS, but of course it was pan and scan and stuff. I never had a version of this on disc widescreen, and I'm like, let me just get this because I haven't seen this forever. And then we ended up being able to see it at a drive-in of all places, digitally of course, but it was still really just crazy to be able to see this at a drive-in theater, and how appropriate, like to see, a movie that took place in this era at a drive-in theater, which is kind of something that was really heavily happening in that era. I was hoping that there'd be some hot rods and stuff that would show up to watch it, but I don't think I saw any. But, so I've seen it twice recently within the last month or so. And that's why I'm reviewing it, is because it just happened into my life twice within the last 4 weeks or so. So as I said, the movie follows the exploits of a group of friends over the course of a night, and in 1962, and I don't know, you've got Richard Dreyfuss, who's obviously really young in this movie, pre-Jaws, and I don't know if it's one of his first movies. I think he's the first billing, he's one of the main characters. You've got Ron Howard, you've got, was it Cindy Williams, and the guy who would go on to be in Puppet Master, Paul Le Mat. Of course I saw him, well no, I saw this in the 80s on TV, before I saw Puppet Master, but and I think those are the main characters. Oh, then that goofy guy with the scooter who ends up picking up that one chick, and then of course co-starring, you know, little bit pieces of Harrison Ford and stuff like that. So it's funny because I mean I don't know, it's kind of a movie that's held in high regard, but I want to say it's probably, you know, people who like it probably just like it for the you know the way it just so wonderfully captures the era. And the music and the vehicles and the fashions and stuff of the time, because if you really think about it, I mean there's not a whole hell of a lot about the movie that's that amazing. And it's funny because you'd think I'd like it more than I do, because I generally, I mean, I'm not really huge big on the kind of movies that are mostly done, which is like the plot driven movies where you've got like, you know, traditional beginning, middle, and end, and you've got something to overcome, and then you overcome it or you don't, and the movie's over. I'm not, because those are done more oftentimes than not, and they're just so boring. I'm not too crazy about that formula of movies. So this movie doesn't do that. It's just like basically just showing the exploits, random exploits of these characters throughout the course of the movie. And the movie being almost 2 hours long, I feel like maybe it doesn't need to be quite that long or whatever, but I guess at the same time, you have to have enough time to show all of the exploits of all the characters, whatever. Obviously, I'm not going to go into all the exploits of all the characters, but I will simply say that that's the gist of the movie. I don't know why Ron Howard's character lends this goofy kind of nerd guy, the scooter riding guy, his car. It doesn't really make any sense. There's drama between Ron Howard and Cindy Williams' character, their boyfriend-girlfriend. I think, you know, having seen it just twice recently, I'm not really good with dialogue-driven, you know, exposition plot points or whatever. I guess like Richard Dreyfuss, is it Ron Howard and Richard Dreyfuss? Are they both supposed to be going off to college the next day? So maybe this isn't summer, maybe it's fall, I don't freaking know. But either either Richard Dreyfuss and or Ron Howard are supposed to like go off to college the next day or something like that, and Richard Dreyfuss doesn't know if he wants to, and you know, there's some strife between Ron Howard and his girlfriend, Cindy Williams. And it's funny watching it again because Ron Howard doesn't spend he's not in the movie very much at all. And it's mostly, I don't know, it seems to be mostly Richard Dreyfuss and that nerdy guy with the glasses and his exploits with the car he borrowed from Ron Howard. He ends up picking up this blonde chick. So you've got those exploits, and then, you know, Richard Dreyfuss just bumming around, riding around with whoever, and he ends up riding around with, you know, he ends up seeing him right in the back of this vehicle and ends up, you know, it's really weird. It's like Ron Howard lends out his vehicle to this nerdy guy, and then he ends up being driven around by, you know, his girlfriend in her car. And it's Richard Dreyfuss' character, I think, the brother of Ron Howard's girlfriend. I don't even know. I think that's how it works. So then, like in the beginning of the movie, you know, Richard Dreyfuss' character is riding around in the back, you know, with in Ron Howard's girlfriend's car, and Ron Howard's in there, and he's in the back, and there at this stoplight, he ends up seeing this blonde who's like, just beautiful blonde, you know. But when the movie starts, Richard Dreyfuss is complaining to Paul Le Mat about just no girls being any cuter. How come all girls that I meet are just ugly in this town or whatever? Like he's some kind of, you know, prize catch himself, being a little pudgy young guy or whatever. But so that's one thing. It's setting up this, you know, this plot point, if you will, with this, you know, this mystery blonde who pulls up next to him and at the stoplight and like kind of mouths the word, you know, I love you. And she takes off, and she becomes this thing that, you know, Richard Dreyfuss is trying to find throughout the whole movie, which, to be honest, gets, I don't know, maybe a little old or boring, because every now and then he'll see that car and he'll go running on foot after it, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just not too sure I need all that crap. But I mean, it's his movie, he can do what he wants with it. And then later on, Richard Dreyfuss' character gets all, you know, caught up with this gang. You know, this gang, the early 60s kind of just gang of, you know, robbers and thieves, and they go rip off frickin' pinball machines, and it's just, I don't know, you know, watching it, you know, knowing that this movie's got a relatively big cult following, it's just kind of like watching it again this year for the first time in a long time. I mean, I don't know if I really ever properly watched this movie all the way through, you know. I was just like, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not a whole hell of a lot going on here. I mean, frankly, the best thing, as I said about it, is just the era. It's wonderful portrayal of the era, which ironically is just 10 years prior to when, took place just 10 years prior to when the movie was made or came out. And the music and the cars and stuff like that, and just the representation of just that era basically is the best thing about this movie. And those few times, another thing, another running plot point, if you will, or storyline throughout this movie is, Paul Le Mat character is this big tough, racer guy who is hot rod. He's like undefeated racer guy with the white t-shirt and the smokes rolled up in his one sleeve thing and stuff like that. And he's like undefeated, hot rod race car guy of the town or whatever. And there's this reoccurring thing where this Harrison Ford character that pops up every now and then 3 or 4 times in the movie is this guy who's got this hot crap, black hot rod car, and he's looking to race this guy. And I gotta tell you, I mean, Harrison Ford's acting in this movie is really funny, but then it reminds me that it's really not that wonderfully great in episode 4 either. So it's kind of funny seeing Harrison Ford's acting in his early years or whatever. He seems like he's just in a whole movie for high school or college or something. It just seems really funny to see him in these early roles. But that's one of the main things that happens with Paul Le Mat's character, and not to mention, Paul Le Mat trying to pick up on girls or broads, if you will, and stuff, and ending up with this way underage, I don't know if she's maybe 13 or 14-year-old girl, and driving around for a while, and the exploits that go on with that, where she, it's nothing that's like sexual or romantic or anything. She just wants to, I guess, kind of a girl who maybe wants to grow up a little too fast. Not in the, she doesn't want to kiss or park or anything like that, but she just wants to be, little sister. I guess she just wants to be included or appreciated or acknowledged or whatever. But some of the exploits between that young girl who Paul Le Mat character kind of gets stuck with, or those are kind of fun. Those might be some of the most, for me, entertaining bits of the movie to see, what she says and their interactions, and how that ends is a kind of a bittersweet ending too, So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying the movie's a bad movie. I just some of the stuff I guess I don't really like, and some of the stuff I do. And then of course the goofy guy with the glasses who borrows Ron Howard's car picks up this relatively attractive blonde chick, and it's unclear whether or not he actually gets a piece or not. If they actually screw or not. I mean, they end up parking and doing some stuff in the back seat or whatever, but it's not clear as to exactly what transpires. George Lucas, if you're watching this video, which I'm sure you are, can you leave a comment in this video is to tell me exactly what transpired in the back seat of the car. Like, did they screw? Like, what exactly happened? And I'll give me all the details with that nerdy glasses wearing guy and the relatively hot blonde chick. What exactly happened in that car before the car was stolen? One of the other funny scenes was, of course, this blonde chick wants to have this nerdy guy, score him some booze, and that scene was kind of funny where, he tries to have that happen and he gets his money ripped off, and the one guy, he ends up, robbing the place and running out of the place and throwing him the bottle of booze and getting shot at. I mean, that's kind of funny. Another thing that I'm curious about is, did that robber get shot dead, or was that store clerk a bad shot and did he miss? That's something also, George, I would appreciate knowing as a viewer who recently watched this movie twice. Like, one of the things you don't really know, I guess you're just probably supposed to assume he's just, I don't know if those were warning shots or if he missed or if he's just shooting blanks, but I can't imagine that he's going to shoot the person dead for, well, I guess maybe he would, I don't know. So maybe that'll do it for my review of American Graffiti. It's just a night from dusk till dawn exploits of one night in 1962 between all these characters, and basically, I mean, I'm not going to say it's bad. I guess I just don't think it's the most amazing thing in the world, I guess is what it boils down to. I will go we'll go 2.5 stars out of 4 stars for American Graffiti. A lot of you American Graffiti fans out there are probably like pulling the hair out of your head going, what the hell are you talking about, man? Well, I don't know. There's something about the movie that just doesn't reach, I don't know, it just doesn't reach me very deeply, you know. I mean, the music and the cars and the era stuff is really great, but I mean, I guess I need more than that to really, it just doesn't affect me, you know, in a profound way or anything like that. So I guess that's the basis for my star rating or whatever. I even when I was watching it as a kid, you know, taped off TV, I was like, you know, it was just like, it was kind of just on in the background. It was just like, this really, you know, isn't the greatest thing in the world. Why am I watching this? But whatever. I mean, I know it's definitely got its following, and that's fine, because, you know, it's probably, as I said, what it does good is make, you know, it definitely does a great job at recreating the era very well, and the music and the cars and all that stuff. But, you know, for me, it doesn't really do all that much more than that. So thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.